In our headlines on this Friday afternoon, October 27th, here in South Korea. The Israeli military says a number of weapons used by Hamas in its surprise multi-pronged attack against Israel earlier this month were made in North Korea and in Iran. Now, these latest assertions follow similar allegations by U.S. authorities, to which North Korea had earlier strongly denied. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and China's top diplomat Wang meet for talks in Washington, with the former calling for constructive conversation and the latter acknowledging their differences but also their common challenges, which he claims need to be tackled together. On the local front, relevant authorities here are ramping up efforts to better protect the country's cattle via swift vaccination, as more cases of lumpy skin disease are reported nationwide overnight, following the first such case reported a week ago. Israeli authorities on Thursday held a media tour during which it had on display a number of weapons used by Hamas during its October 7th attack. The arsenal included North Korean rocket-propelled grenades and Iranian-made mortar rounds. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
The Israeli military says North Korean and Iranian weapons, which included mines, rocket-propelled grenades, and drones, were used by Hamas during its attack on Israel on October 7th. An Iranian mortar launcher and a North Korean-made grenade launcher were part of the haul of weapons recovered, with an official saying a total of 20% of all weapons used by Hamas during the attacks were from North Korea and Iran. Iran's foreign minister told the United Nations on Thursday that Tehran is ready to play a role in mediating talks to release Israeli hostages from Hamas, along with Qatar and Turkey. However, he said in order for such negotiations to take place, Israel must be prepared to release 6,000 Palestinians held in its prisons. Meanwhile, according to Russian media outlet TASS, a delegation from Hamas visited Moscow on Thursday for talks on the release of hostages, including Russian citizens that the militant group is currently holding in Gaza. The Kremlin said Iran's deputy foreign minister is in Moscow to hold talks with Russian officials to discuss the ongoing conflict and find ways to stabilize the situation. Israel slammed the visit by the Hamas delegation, saying that Russia should expel them from their country, while criticizing Russia for inviting them. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and China's top diplomat Wang on Thursday sat down for talks in Washington amid pledges to promote constructive and comprehensive interactions. Our correspondent Choi Min-jung has details.
Top diplomats of the United States and China kicked off a long-anticipated discussion in Washington on Thursday. Speaking briefly before sitting down for talks, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken welcomed his Chinese counterpart, Wang Yi.
I very much look forward to constructive conversations over the next 2 days.
Wang said Washington and Beijing have disagreements, but at the same time share important common interests and challenges that they need to resolve together. Comments that Blinken said he agreed with.
Not only should it be resumed, the dialogue should be in-depth and comprehensive so that with dialogue we can increase understanding, reduce misunderstanding and misjudgments.
Wang's 3-day visit follows a flurry of diplomatic engagements between the countries aimed at easing bilateral tensions. The current trip is primarily aimed at preparing a possible summit between Joe Biden and Xi Jinping in November on the sidelines of an Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Leaders meeting in San Francisco. And amid ongoing conflict, it's anticipated that the U.S. will use Wang's trip to urge China to play a constructive role in wars between Israel and Hamas, as well as Russia and Ukraine. The U.S. State Department previously hinted that North Korea issues would also be on the agenda of the meetings. China's top diplomat on Friday is set to meet with National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, and it's highly likely he'll speak with President Biden as well. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
And former Chinese Premier Li Keqiang has reportedly passed away. According to China's state broadcaster CCTV on this Friday, the 68-year-old Li died of a heart attack in Shanghai. Li served as premier from the year 2013 to 2023 and was the second most powerful official in the ruling Chinese Communist Party until he was replaced by Li Qiang earlier this March. The Tokyo Electric Power Company will begin its third round of radioactive wastewater release from its devastated Fukushima nuclear power plant on November 2nd. According to Japan's Kyodo News on Thursday, some 7,800 cubic meters of wastewater will be discharged into the Pacific Ocean over a period of some 17 days, as had been the case during the previous rounds of discharge. TEPCO began the first round of discharge back in August. It plans to release a total of 31,200 cubic meters by next March. Over in the U.S., third quarter findings show the American economy expanded close to 5%, bolstered by consumer spending. Our Shin Se-byuk has the fresh figures.
The U.S. economy grew 4.9% in the third quarter. The figure released by the Commerce Department on Thursday marked the highest increase in nearly 2 years since the 7% growth recorded in the fourth quarter of 2021. Notably, this surpassed both the previous quarter's 2.1% and economists' expectations of 4.3%, despite the country's interest rates reaching their highest level in 22 years. Consumer spending played a key role. It was up 4%, the fastest pace since the last quarter of 2021, demonstrating the country's resilience in the face of challenges such as high inflation and soaring interest rates. Other indicators, inventories, investment, and government spending also posted strong growth. In a TV interview on Thursday, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen acknowledged that while the growth rate is likely to slow, she labeled it as a good, strong number. Yellen also expressed confidence in the U.S. economy's ability to achieve a soft landing. Meanwhile, as for the significant increase in long-term bond yields, Yellen attributed this to confidence in the U.S. economy, which has led to expectations of higher interest rates for a longer period. The interest rate on the 10-year U.S. Treasury bond hit 5% early this week, the highest since 2007. This came as the U.S. last week reported a $1.7 trillion federal budget deficit for the fiscal year 2023. The 10-year Treasury yield, a barometer of investor confidence, is widely considered one of the safest investments as it carries the full backing of the U.S. government. There have been suggestions that higher bond yields came as a result of worries about rising U.S. deficits and an economic recession. Despite concerns, Yellen dismissed suggestions of rising U.S. deficits and a potential economic recession and emphasized the possibility of longer-term yields decreasing. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
The European Central Bank has decided to hold steady its benchmark interest rate at 4.5%. Now, Thursday's decision breaks an unprecedented session of 10 straight rate hikes that began in July 2022 and follows signs of weakening regional economic growth and slowing inflation. It also comes ahead of the U.S. Federal Reserve and the Bank of England meeting next week. And as global leaders seek to contain a wider regional conflict amid the fresh fighting between Israel and Hamas, economists are seeking to assess the potential market repercussions of a prolonged confrontation. My colleague Shin Ha-young spoke with some of them.
Since the beginning of the Israel-Hamas conflict, all eyes have been on global oil prices, which can push up inflation both at home and abroad. Global oil prices jumped more than 4% on the third day of the Israel-Hamas conflict, which was the biggest one-day gain since April 3rd. However, even though oil prices rebounded as of Wednesday after prices fell on Tuesday for the third straight session, fluctuations have been less significant for the past few days. This came amid diplomatic efforts from a number of countries to release hostages. Also, Israel has not yet launched a ground invasion due to international pressure, alleviating concerns about disruptions in oil supply. But it's too early to predict the actual economic impact, as it's uncertain how the conflict will unfold. Bloomberg Economics estimates that if the conflict extends to a war between Israel and Iran, it could push oil prices to $150 a barrel and drop global growth to 1.7%. This is because of Iran's proximity to the Strait of Hormuz, a vital oil trading route.
If Iran disrupts oil tankers passing through the Strait of Hormuz or even blocks the strait, it could significantly impact global oil prices. This is because about 30% of the volume of the world's total oil consumption passes through that route.
Meanwhile, unlike the Ukraine war, in the case of the Israel-Palestine conflict, the region's contribution to global raw material production is not substantial. According to a report from the Korea International Trade Association, Israel and Palestine each account for less than 0.4% of South Korea's overall trade, meaning the effect is expected to be insignificant. However, the author of the report said it's necessary to diversify the supply chain of certain items.
South Korea heavily depends on Israel for key items including bromine and airborne radar for aircraft. With an import dependency exceeding 90% for these items, a prolonged Israel-Hamas conflict could pose challenges for South Korea. Therefore, it is crucial to diversify the supply chain to secure alternative suppliers.
He added that a prolonged war could potentially disrupt the supply chains in these advanced industries, as Israel is a hub for this sector, where there are R&D centers and sales offices of South Korean firms like Samsung and SK hynix. 신나영, 아리랑 뉴스.
Korea will expand the annual enrollment quota for medical schools starting in the year 2025 to address staff shortages in rural regions and in critical care sectors. The intentions to this end were shared by Health Minister Cho Kyu-hong back on Thursday, who also spoke of government plans to open new medical schools in areas beyond Seoul. The enrollment quota has been frozen at slightly above 3,000 since the year 2006. Doctors, for their part, have stressed simply expanding the quota does not address the fundamental problem of scarcity of medical workers in rural regions and in critical care sectors. Authorities are ramping up efforts to better protect the country's cattle as more cases of lumpy skin disease have been reported nationwide overnight. Our Ioni covers these efforts.
Viral lumpy skin disease is spreading in South Korea, with the number of farms found to have confirmed cases on the rise. The outbreak was first discovered in Chungcheongnam-do province on October 20th, and since then more at other farms in the province as well as in neighboring Chungcheongbuk-do province, Gyeonggi-do, Jeollabuk-do, and Gangwon-do provinces, and Incheon. This has led to the culling of over 2,000 cattle. As part of the response, authorities have announced the introduction of an additional 4 million doses of the vaccine by the end of this month, and that all cattle in the country will be vaccinated by early November. The Central Disaster Management Headquarters is currently carrying out vaccinations, focusing on farms close to where outbreaks occurred, using the 540,000 doses of pre-secured vaccine. This farm in Gyeonggi-do province is vaccinating all 104 cattle in its herd.
The vaccination of all cattle on the farm has been completed according to the government's manual, and we are keeping strict vehicle control measures to prevent the spread of the disease. Also, I'm trying my best to control parasites, since the virus is transmitted by blood-sucking insects. When feeding the animals in the morning and evening, I am spending more time observing the cattle to check for symptoms.
Local governments are actively promoting disease preventive measures, including the operation of disinfection facilities, as well as pest control measures, as lumpy skin disease is transmitted by blood-feeding insects. The mortality rate is under 10%, and symptoms include skin nodules and lower milk production. While the disease does not pose a threat to humans in any way, farm owners are concerned.
I believe that it is most important for individual farm owners to pay careful attention to prevent the disease from spreading. I am seriously concerned about the lumpy skin disease spreading to my farm and leading to a culling of all the cattle.
The Central Disaster Management Headquarters has placed restrictions on the movement of cattle on farms in regions neighboring areas where lumpy skin disease has been found until vaccination is complete. Authorities say, considering the period required for antibodies to form, the next 3 weeks are crucial. Ian-hee, Arirang News.
Korea's food and beverage companies are seeking innovative ways to address government concerns over its surplus rice by using rice powder to make instant noodles and even beer. Our Ian Jin has more.
A domestic company well known for its chicken products has created the first line of instant noodles made from powdered rice. Using powdered rice brings out a more chewy texture in the noodles.
This product was developed to promote rice consumption in local farming, as well as bring consumers a new taste and texture of food. We are planning to start official sales of the noodles in stores in November.
This craft beer company in Jeollabuk-do province has been using powdered rice in its beer since 2019. Not only does the powdered rice add flavor and give a clean aftertaste, but it also makes beer production easier by eliminating the step of having to soak the rice in water.
Powdered rice is significantly more effective than normal rice. The price is similar, but it takes out a step in the production process, which is important for the manufacturer.
6 food manufacturing companies have produced 17 different snacks from powdered rice. The Food Ministry said that the 5 tons of powdered rice produced last year sold out this year and said it would increase the supply at least 20-fold for next year. In order to reap the rewards of the government's continued efforts and support to stimulate rice consumption, it remains crucial for food production companies to further develop items that spark consumers' demand. 이은진, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, researchers here have developed a robotic hand that is closer to mimicking our sense of touch and is capable of determining the firmness and freshness of fruits like tomatoes. Our Chung Won-ju explains.
A tool resembling a hand called the gripper holds a tomato, then carefully lifts and moves it to another location without causing any damage. The gripper instantly measures the size, shape, and firmness of the tomato when holding it.
By finely adjusting the air gap between the sensing material and the electrode, the gripper accurately determines an object's firmness by simultaneously detecting the pressure applied to the object and the gripper's bending degree.
This intelligent gripper accurately distinguished 11 varieties of tomatoes with different sizes and properties, achieving a 98.78% accuracy rate. This means it can determine the ripeness of tomatoes in real-time sorting. The gripper functions stably even after more than 10,000 repetitive test runs under harsh conditions of low temperatures or high humidity.
The newly developed multimodal tactile sensor can provide various tactile functions to the robotic gripper and is expected to be applied to automation lines in the fields of collaborative, humanoid, and service robots.
In addition to the tactile sensor, the research team plans to develop a technology that integrates temperature, humidity, inertial, and distance sensors into one platform, which may enable the development of an intelligent robotic hand capable of moving and functioning naturally like a human hand. Chung Won-ju, Arirang News.
Korea's men's football team has moved up 2 spots in the latest FIFA rankings to stand at 24th in the world. Now, this is Team Korea's second straight session of advances up the ladder after the team rose 2 places back in July. The latest ranking follows the Taeguk Warriors' defeat of Tunisia 4-0 and Vietnam 6-0 this month. Since Jurgen Klinsmann took over the national team in March, Korea has secured 3 wins, 3 draws and 2 losses. Among Asian countries, Japan ranked highest at 18. In other news, 17 will become the first K-pop artist to address the UNESCO Youth Forum. Its management company, Fledis Entertainment, on this Friday announced the group had been assigned a full 1-hour session at the Paris headquarters at 7 p.m. local time on November 14th, during which 17 will give a speech and then a performance. 17's speech will seek to share the message that education and solidarity among young people can change the future. The UNESCO Youth Forum is held every 2 years alongside the UNESCO General Conference, providing a platform for the globe's young representatives.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. Following the mass shooting in the city of Lewiston, Maine on Wednesday, which left at least 18 dead, American President Joe Biden released a statement urging lawmakers, especially Republican counterparts, to cooperate in passing bills for strengthening gun laws. while an intensive manhunt is still underway for the 40-year-old suspect Robert Card. Biden released a White House statement on Thursday, emphasizing the urgent need for additional legislative action. Biden has been promoting gun safety policies through the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, as well as the establishment of the White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention. The president said, "This is the very least we owe every American who will now bear the scars, physical and mental, of this latest attack." Category 5 Hurricane Otis, which made landfall on Mexico's Pacific coast on Wednesday, has reportedly caused at least 27 deaths and left 4 people missing. The tourist city of Acapulco was particularly affected by the hurricane, which rapidly strengthened from a tropical storm to a powerful Category 5 hurricane in record time. The storm left Acapulco's municipal water system down and some 500,000 homes without power. Authorities have also raised concerns over a potential increase in the number of dead following extensive devastation. Mexico's President López Obrador visited Acapulco late Wednesday and said that restoring power and infrastructure was a top priority. Scientists are working towards an explanation as to why the hurricane was not foreseen. In Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, 2 of the world's best in heavyweight boxing and mixed martial arts, Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou, are set to face off under boxing rules on Saturday night. Tyson Fury, nicknamed the Gypsy King, is a 35-year-old WBC heavyweight champion born in Manchester, UK. His opponent Francis the Predator Ngannou, a 37-year-old former UFC heavyweight champion, has come a long way from working in a sand quarry in Cameroon as a 12-year-old to becoming one of the most renowned figures in mixed martial arts. In what's being called a dream matchup between boxing and UFC, the fighters are expected to touch gloves after a series of undercard bouts beginning 8 p.m. local time. More than 50 years after the British rock band from Liverpool, the Beatles, broke up, the band announced the release of what's being called their last song, titled Now and Then. Among the most iconic pop stars in the history of music, the Fab Four debuted in 1960 and released timeless global hits such as Hey Jude, Come Together, and Let It Be before the band broke up in 1970. Comprised of John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr, the band's only 2 surviving members, 81-year-old McCartney and 83-year-old Starr, worked with director Peter Jackson, who used AI to complete the recording. Now and Then will be released on Thursday, November 2nd. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Murky skies to start out the day, then the skies will get sunnier, but those in the east of Gangwon-do province are in for a drenching. Keep an umbrella handy through this afternoon with up to 60 millimeters in the forecast there, but the rest of the country could see 5 to 40 millimeters along with thunder and lightning. Unlike what was expected, temperatures were much warmer than normal this morning in most places. Then afternoon highs are a couple of notches lower than yesterday, but still higher than seasonal temperatures this afternoon. So in Gwangju, see highs of 19 degrees, Daegu topping out at 20 degrees Celsius under brighter skies in most places. Air quality has improved in central regions, but Gyeongsang-do provinces and surrounding areas are slightly higher than usual. Looking ahead to the weekend, ample sunshine is in the forecast nationwide, painting a perfect backdrop for autumn outings, but make sure to layer up. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
And that ends this week's editions of the Daily Report. Coming up right after this break is yet another session of our panel discussion, so do stay with us.
입니다. 한국 스탠바이. 한국 스타트.
We deliver stories on site. From Korea to the world, and from the world to Korea. We ask questions every day that could change the world. Taking news a step further, Arirang News. You're watching Arirang News. You're watching Arirang.
Contour the world, simply contour. India, the United Kingdom, New Zealand. Woo!
I'm excited. You excited?
Of course.
Yeah.
Music, start.
Welcome.
엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
한국에 오면 먹어야죠.
먹어도 먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
A Korean scholar over in the US is among the winners of this year's Ig Nobel Prize, which is said to be a good-natured parody, if you will, of the Nobel Prize and awarded to amusing but thought-provoking advances in diverse fields. Welcome to Issues and Insiders. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with one of the winners of this year's Ig Nobel Prize, who secured the honor in the category of public health for his development of a smart toilet. I have Dr. Seungmin Park at Stanford University live on the line. Dr. Park, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me today. It's my great pleasure and honor to meet you.
The pleasure's all ours, Dr. Park. So congratulations on your win. How do you feel?
Yeah, receiving the Ig Nobel Prize for Public Health has been both humbling and exciting. It beautifully encapsulates the idea that research, while profound, can have a numerous edge. I'm really grateful for this recognition.
Dr. Park, what's been the response from those around you with regard to your win?
Yeah, everyone around me have been incredibly supportive. There's a hint of amusement, of course, given the unique nature of the award. But overall, the excitement and pride from my peers, family, and friends have been palpable. My wife, who stood by me throughout the entire smart toilet development, she is most ardent admirer.
Right, I see. Dr. Park, now before we delve into your invention, for the sake of those who may not be familiar with the Ig Nobel Prize, could you take some time to explain it in detail for us?
Yes, of course. The Ig Nobel Prize, in essence, celebrate research that makes first people laugh, then think. It's not about trivializing science, but rather emphasizing its diverse and sometimes unexpected nature. While the Nobel Prize highlights the groundbreaking discoveries, the Ig Nobel spotlights the unconventional, yet equally crucial facets of scientific inquiry. A prime example is Dr. Andre Geim, who first secured an Ig Nobel for levitating a frog in a high magnetic field, and later earned the Nobel Prize in physics for his groundbreaking work on graphene using a simple Scotch tape.
Amazing. Dr. Park, now, do tell us a bit about your smart toilet.
Yes, the smart toilet, as known as precision healthcare toilet, goes beyond the ordinary, latrine. Integrated with cutting-edge multimodal sensors, including optical sensors, also known as camera, and artificial intelligence equipped with computer vision. We can evaluate human waste to discern potential health red flags. Imagine having a diagnostic lab right in your home bathroom, continuously monitoring and giving feedback on your health. Our smart toilet is poised to provide such value in your home setting. For example, our optical sensors will monitor human stool in the toilet environment so that we can capture digital biomarker from human excrete, such as volume, color, morphology, and such.
Right, unconventional, but I'm sure very crucial, as you mentioned earlier. How long did it take to make the smart toilet?
I think it's mostly about like 20 years ago. My late mentor started this project. The inspiration arose from understanding that our waste is a goldmine of information about our health. So my late mentor, Dr. Sanjeev Sangambir, who was a chair of the radiology, conceived this idea almost 20 years ago. In 2016, I was the one who suggested the realization of this project, and we envisioned together leveraging this routine act, converting human waste into the daily health checkup, providing crucial insight which often overlooked. Dr. Gambier and I always emphasize, don't waste your waste.
And by not wasting our waste, Dr. Park, you're able to assess perhaps our medical condition based on our excretion. Is that correct then?
That's what we're hoping to do.
Do you think you'd win the Ig Nobel Prize for the smart toilet?
To be honest, the idea of securing an Ig Nobel Prize never really crossed my mind, actually. I became aware of my work's nomination of the award post my 2020 paper publication in 2020. But 3 years went by with no update. In the meantime, I was primarily driven by the healthcare potential of the smart toilet, but having this accolade just reaffirmed the significance and the novelty of our work. I was so much surprised
And staying
when
with
I first heard about it. Yes.
Right, and Dr. Park, staying with the significance of this particular work, could you tell us a bit more about it? What makes it so important? Why does the smart toilet matter?
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, the best healthcare act will be like drawing your blood every day. But the drawing blood requires needle, which is a crucial step to secure biospecimen from your blood, your body. But one primary drawback is basically it requires a needle that people will hate it. So I think the natural resource for the healthcare is from your stool and urine. So we're basically saying that it can be very much, proactive healthcare rather than reactive healthcare.
And Dr. Park, for those who are not experts in this particular field, could you tell us a bit about the number of illnesses or diseases that can be deduced, should I say, from your stool or your urine?
Oh, yes. I think it has numerous applications. I cannot actually tell you the exact numbers because we're still actually enumerating the disease that we can diagnose or making a treatment. But what I can tell you is the very simple process that we can diagnose is basically from like a constipation, from the monitoring the stool morphology, or pelvic floor dysfunctions, or even like a UTI, urinary tract infection from a urinary volume, urinary biomarkers activity checking. So these are all possibilities that we can extend disease monitoring in relating with genitourinary tract and the gastrointestinal tract.
Right, I see. Dr. Park, simply speaking, how popular do you suppose the smart toilets will be among the general public?
Yeah, I think nowadays, I think nobody realized this kind of technology exists. But I envision that the smart toilet gaining significant traction in homes due to its number of advantage. Its non-invasive nature combined with the capability to offer instantaneous health insight position it as a valuable asset. Including Korea, Eastern Asia seems to poised an ideal starting point, especially given the prevalent use of electronic bidet system. In Korea, roughly half of the household utilize these systems, while Japan's adoption rate is notably higher, ranging between 72 and 80%. In contrast, the United States showcases a minimal uptake, falling below a mere of 2 to 3%. As awareness grows, I expect a notable increase in adoption of the smart toilet in the future, in near future.
Right, hopefully, our fingers crossed for that. Dr. Park, I ask as a layperson, what would be the risks, perhaps, with regard to privacy concerns in the mass adoption of the smart toilet, do you think?
I think one of a major drawback of our system is we're using the optical sensor, which is known to be a camera. And as you know, camera and toilet doesn't get along each other. So that may be one of the biggest hurdle. But the thing is, the reason why we chose the camera as a sensor is because it's the most well-developed sensor in the world. Because as you can see in your cell phone, in your computer, there's always been a camera over there. So which means it's really well developed and growing. Artificial intelligence, especially in the field of computer vision, that really enhanced the use of the camera as a sensor. So, but the thing is, because of use of camera, people may have an apprehension of using those systems as a healthcare sentinel. So that related to the privacy issues, and there's another concern about the smart toilet system, which is ethical concerns, because smart toilet system is poised to be working as passively as possible, which means without consent we may actually collect the human health data without any without knowing people who's using the toilet. So they raise a lot of ethical concerns too. But we're working on it to resolve all those issues.
Right, good to know. Dr. Park, is the future of healthcare, do you suppose, preventative strategies now?
Absolutely. Healthcare is increasingly focusing on the preventive measure. Early detection and timely intervention result in improved health outcomes and can also lessen the strain of our healthcare system. Stanford launched a new initiative called Precision Health, where the aim is to proactively monitor human health with the goal of keeping healthy individuals healthier, rather than waiting for them to fall ill.
Right, of course. Dr. Park, what do you believe is the importance of such quirky awards like the Ig Nobel Prize?
Award like an Ig Nobel add a bit of fun to a serious world of research. They underline the idea that innovation can be both impactful and entertaining. It's a brilliant way to engage the public, explaining science and making it more relatable. One of the primary challenges in developing the smart toilet was addressing the sensitive nature of human waste. As you know, human waste always been regarded as taboo in almost every culture. I believe the Ig Nobel Prize might help reduce some of these reservations surrounding this topic.
Right, well, Dr. Park, one man's waste or trash, so to speak, is another man's treasure, they say. I was wondering, with regard to the Ig Nobel Prize, Dr. Park, are there any fun aspects of that prize that you'd like to share? I understand there's a cash award for the winners as well. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, there's a cash award, which is about 10 trillion Zimbabwean dollar. 10 trillion. But, you know, in the United States currency equivalent, it's a $4.
Right, I see.
Yeah. And interestingly, they sent me the note in a PDF format, which means I have to print it out. That means it actually automatically make it as a counterfeit. But interesting thing is, this note is never been in use in the public, so which means I'm not. It's not legal to use it.
Right, of course not.
Yeah, that's the one anecdote I can share with you.
Dr. Park, aside from your smart toilet, of course, were there any other inventions at this year's Ig Nobel Prize that caught your attention?
Oh, yeah. I think one of the biggest inventions that I can see is the chapstick, which makes you have a salty feeling, even though it's not a salty at all. That's really a good invention. I think it's one of the most innovative inventions, so that it introduced a way to reduce the daily consumption of the sodium. That's, I think it's one of the cleverest. I never actually seen at all.
Right, I have to agree with you. Apart from the smart toilet, I was quite impressed with that as well. Dr. Park, let's end now then with perhaps a few words about your future plans.
Yeah, moving forward, our team is partnering with the smart cities, including NEOM in Saudi Arabia, to establish the smart toilet as the essential health monitors. In this smart city, proactive healthcare will hinge on the preventive measure that we discussed earlier. As a result, smart toilet can function as an interconnected health sentinel. And we're also engaging with NASA to assess its use for health surveillance during deep space missions. In the upcoming decades, one of the NASA's key objectives is to send astronauts to Mars. The journey alone to Mars could take 7 to 12 months, exposing astronauts to challenging environments. Together, we're conceptualizing the new healthcare framework for deep space called Precision Space Health, focusing on proactive healthcare monitoring in space setting. The horizon is vast, and I'm excited to continue our journey.
It's a very impressive list of endeavors right there. Dr. Park, thank you so much for making the time to speak with us live about your inventions and more.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Right. Well, that ends this week's editions of Issues and Insiders. Have a great weekend and see you next Monday.
Busan is the center of Northeast Asian port logistics and a mecca of the marine tourism industry. It is a world-class maritime city where the Eurasian continent both begins and ends. The leader of a mega-city industrial belt with a population of 10 million. It is a city with truly great potential. The solution for the future of Korea. World Expo 2030, Busan, Korea. The great journey begins in Busan, Korea. The World Expo is an industrial exhibition with a history of over 170 years and is developed into a vital form